The cultivator stood in silence, his expression unreadable, half his face cloaked in shadow as his piercing gaze locked forward. A horde of grotesque undead creatures shambled toward them, their pale faces twisted with hunger as a sinister purple aura swirled behind. The cultivator remarked to Seo, "No one knows to fear the cultivators. Is it because you just don't know any better? Or do you have no fear because you are so old?" He broke one of the undead's hands and told Seo, "I'll show you. Cultivators have the power to make you feel pain worse than death." Two enormous spectral hands shot forward from the swirling energy, passing by Seo. His eyes widened in shock, his body tensing as something blurred past him at incredible speed, leaving him momentarily frozen in place. Seo's sharp gaze followed the blur, realization dawning in his eyes. He wasn't the target. Seo quickly turned back and saw those hands attach themselves to Director Kim's body. His eyes widened in horror as he realized what the cultivator intended to do. The cultivator looked at Seo with a cold, piercing stare. "I'll make you pay the price for looking down on a cultivator," he said. Seo's face twisted with rage, his teeth clenched and eyes blazing as he shouted, "You evil bastard!" With those undead hands attached to Director Kim's body, he became part of the cultivator's undead army. With a menacing glare, the cultivator commanded, "Ultimate martial spirit, kill your own disciple." The possessed Director Kim threw his head back and let out a monstrous roar, his jagged teeth bared as an inhuman sound tore from his throat. Wreathed in a sinister purple aura, he swung his weapon with devastating force toward Seo, who braced himself with his sword, his expression tense and unyielding. Seo glared up at cultivator hovering above, his voice filled with fury as he demanded, "How dare you defile a dead man's legacy like this?" The cultivator looked down at Seo with a calm yet condescending smile, clearly enjoying the anger etched across Seo's face. Meanwhile, Director Kim's body, radiating that same sinister purple aura, charged at Seo and clashed violently with him, their blades ringing out in the cold air. Seo's thoughts remained steady despite the onslaught. Thankfully, his opponent couldn't use martial arts. Instead, Kim attacked with nothing but the raw, overwhelming strength that the cultivator's power had surged into him, each strike driven purely by brute force rather than technique. Blade crashed against blade with crushing force, the impact reverberating through the air. Purple energy surged around Director Kim, amplifying every strike. But the sheer force and speed were so great that Seo thought grimly, his arms straining under the pressure. "It's hard for my old body to withstand this." Gritting his teeth, his eyes blazing with determination, Seo struggled against the crushing weight of the descending blade. Gripping his sword tightly, he felt the dishonor pressing on him. It was already an incredible disgrace to point his blade at Kim Young-hoon, especially when he was already dead. Seo's lips tightened as he spoke in a solemn voice, apologizing. But deep inside, his resolve hardened. If there was nothing else he could do, then he would end it as quickly as possible. Shifting his stance, his grip firm on the hilt, a surge of violet energy spiraled around Seo. His expression was calm, yet resolute, as he invoked his technique. Severing Mountain Sword, 21st form, Heavenly Lake. He remembered that the 21st form of the Severing Mountain Sword was known as Heavenly Lake, a technique as majestic and vast as its name implied. When Director Kim had taught him this technique, Seo had asked, "All of the other forms are named after some mountain, peak, or valley. So why is the 21st form named after a lake?" Since Young-hoon Hyung had created it for him in his past life, perhaps he would have an answer. Lying on the grass back then, Director Kim had gazed up at the sky and told Seo, "Heavenly Lake. It reminds me of the Heavenly Lake atop Mount Baekdu." Curious, Seo had asked, "Mount Baekdu?" Director Kim had laughed and nodded, telling Seo that this world had a lake similar to Mount Baekdu's. Or maybe the name had been created by people from Korea, like them. A heavenly lake, its crystal clear surface mirroring the boundless blue sky above. Surrounded by towering, rugged cliffs, the tranquil waters stretched endlessly, embodying serene beauty. It was a lake so pure and still that it seemed to reflect the very sky itself. Now Seo gazed at his glowing blade, his voice calm yet resolute. The heavenly lake holds the view of the skies within its surface, but its nature remains unchanged. In his mind, he reflected on the teachings of the Severing Mountain Sword. The sky symbolized the martial artist he dueled with, and the lake, which encompasses the sky's view, referred to his single strike. Before him, Director Kim lunged with ferocity, their blades moments away from clashing. With a thunderous burst of energy, the strike connected, sending a violent shockwave rippling outward. Director Kim's eyes went wide in shock and agony as his body was engulfed in the overwhelming force, his scream tearing through the air while debris scattered in all directions. Seo's gaze was sharp, his grip steady on the hilt of his glowing sword, as he recalled the essence of his technique. The heavenly lake of the Severing Mountain absorbs all the energy flowing in the opponent's veins into my sword energy for a single moment, and in that instant it launches the enemy away, while their energy becomes trapped within my blade. Purple energy swirled and crackled along his sword. It's a move I can use because I'm a first-rate physician and a master at understanding the 8 chi veins, he thought, feeling the flow of power align perfectly with his strike. This was no ordinary technique. It's a move only I can perform, because this martial art was created specifically for me. Seo knew that if Young-hoon Hyung's corpse remained intact, it could continue to be used as a Zhongshi. That was why he couldn't allow a single piece of him to remain for that evil cultivator to exploit. His fingers tightened around the hilt as blue energy churned violently within the sheath. He would use that churning power to combine all of the Severing Mountain Sword's forms into a single attack. Seo surged forward, his movement sharp and precise as his blade carved through the air, transcending peaks. With a burst of power, he channeled the form's essence, his strike carrying the force and grandeur of mountains rising beyond the clouds. His blade cleaved through the air in a brilliant arc of light, tearing into his opponent. The powerful slash cut cleanly through Director Kim's body, the momentum carrying the attack past him as the sky split with its radiance. Seo unleashed a relentless sequence of strikes, each flowing seamlessly into the next. Second form, entering mountain. Third form, ascending vein. Fourth form, flowing ridge. Fifth form, bouldered cliff. Sixth form, strange stone. His blade carved through the battlefield, each form merging into the next with flawless precision. The ground split and shattered under the force, fragments of rock erupting into the air as arcs of swordlight tore across the terrain. Director Kim let out a blood-curdling scream as countless deep gashes tore across his body in a crisscross pattern. Blood sprayed in every direction, his form trembling violently under the unrelenting assault of Seo's devastating strikes. Seo's eyes burned with fierce determination, his expression twisted with resolve. I'll cut him to pieces, so the cultivators can never defile his legacy further by turning his corpse into their puppet. Seeing this, the cultivator's face twisted with fury, his eyes blazing as he thrust his hand forward, purple-blue energy surging from his palm. "You insect!" he roared, his voice echoing like a thunderclap. As he poured that purple-blue energy into Director Kim's body, it transformed into a monstrous figure that let out a guttural, ear-splitting roar. Its deformed, muscle-bound frame trembled with rage, black tattered wings flaring menacingly from its back as dark energy rippled around it. From below, Seo stood unfazed, his white hair whipping in the turbulent air, staring up at the beast without a hint of fear. Seo's expression hardened, beads of sweat running down his weathered face as he quickly assessed the situation. He couldn't believe the cultivator had boosted him with even more power and speed. His sharp eyes locked on the enemy's movements. There was no time to hesitate. He needed to dodge, fast. But Seo's initial instinct to dodge wavered, his thoughts shifting in an instant. No, what use is there in dodging? He realized grimly. His eyes locked onto the monstrous foe barreling toward him. My life will end soon. I'm already as good as dead. A flicker of resolve lit in his gaze. I will use this moment. With a firm step, Seo's foot slammed into the ground, cracks splintering outward as dust and debris swirled around him. His resolve burned unwaveringly in his heart. To ensure that his master would never again be defiled, he vowed, each movement fueled by unyielding determination. With a fierce battle cry, Seo hurled himself downward like a spear, spiraling through the air with unstoppable momentum. The wind howled around him, the sheer force of his descent tearing through the sky. Burn it all! He roared in his heart and aloud, channeling every ounce of his remaining strength into the final, all-consuming strike. The monstrous figure threw back its head and let out a thunderous roar, veins bulging as raw power surged through its massive frame. Muscles tightened like steel cables, and with a savage lunge, it thrust its arm upward toward the descending Seo. Seo's thoughts raced as he plunged toward his target. I will die, he acknowledged grimly, the truth pressing heavily against his mind. But almost instantly, defiance flared in his eyes. No, I can't die yet. His jaw clenched, teeth grinding as he forced his body to endure. Just a little more, he urged himself, every muscle straining to push beyond his limits. He gritted his teeth, the metallic tang of blood seeping into his mouth as his senses sharpened to a razor's edge. He could feel everything, the air around him, the noises echoing in the distance, the faint scents carried by the wind. He noted the subtle shifts in humidity and temperature, every detail registering in his mind. Even the warm blood on the tip of his tongue was unmistakable, grounding him in the brutal reality of the moment. His head throbbed violently, every heartbeat sending a pulse of agony through his skull. The pressure mounted to an unbearable peak, his brain feeling as if it might explode. But instead of resisting, his eyes burned with feral resolve. Then let it explode! He vowed, ready to sacrifice everything for this final moment. Seo's eyes blazed with a wild, unrelenting fire as he pushed his body beyond its limits. More! More! He demanded of himself, the raw energy surging through him threatening to consume his very mind. With a primal roar, he swung his blade downward, his voice echoing like thunder. Until my brain burns to a crisp. He unleashed every last shred of strength in a single devastating strike. A deafening crack split the air as a surge of crimson energy erupted outward, fracturing the space around him like shattered glass. The red light pulsed violently, radiating raw, destructive power that tore through everything in its path. Seo's eyes widened, his pupils constricting as shock and realization struck him all at once. His breath caught in his throat, his face frozen in raw disbelief, as if witnessing the impossible. His skull felt on the verge of bursting from the unbearable pressure, his mind teetering on the edge of collapse. Yet instead of yielding to the crushing strain of staking his life, something within him broke past that limit, surpassing an unseen threshold he hadn't even known existed. His body felt strangely light as he drifted forward, sword in hand, through an unfamiliar void. Confusion gripped his thoughts. What's going on? Have I become delusional? He wondered, unsure if this was reality, or something beyond it. Seo's eyes flew wide open, his pupils trembling as a jolt of realization surged through him. This is, he thought, caught between awe and disbelief, as if he had stepped into a truth far beyond his understanding. He charged forward, expression fierce and unyielding, sword poised to strike. He could now see the moment of his enemy's attack. He could feel it, With a thunderous impact, Seo's strike met the towering Director Kim head-on. The creature's massive clawed foot slammed into the ground, cracking the earth, while its grotesque sinewed frame twisted to overpower him. Seo drove forward with all his might, the clash shaking the battlefield as their combined force tore through the air. Beneath the dark, swirling sky, Seo stood firm, his tattered robes fluttering in the wind. Gripping his sword with unwavering resolve, he let its blade gleam with a brilliant arc of blue light that cut through the gloom. His weathered gaze was steady, carrying the weight of countless battles and the unyielding will to see this one through. Seo's blade pierced the clouds above, its edge trailing a sharp arc of blue light that split the sky. With a single, decisive slash, his blade tore through the monstrous foe's massive frame. Blood erupted in a violent spray as the creature's agonized roar echoed through the air, its body convulsing from the devastating blow. Seo's eyes widened, a sharp glint of realization flashing within them. Could this be? The thought struck like a thunderclap. Blood still gushed from the deep wound carved across Director Kim's chest, yet Kim's lips curved upward in a faint, almost serene smile. As Seo's eyes widened in disbelief, he couldn't believe Kim Young-hoon was smiling. A talent blessed by the heavens, and a talent forsaken by the heavens. Two extremes standing on opposite ends. Yet despite their differences, there was a single thread binding them. Both had spent their lives struggling to break free from the fate the heavens had given them, refusing to surrender to destiny's grip. Seo gripped his sword as a blinding red light swallowed the battlefield, casting everything into stark silhouettes. Flesh tore apart with each strike, the spray of blood bursting through the crimson haze. The two figures clashed in a violent crescendo, locked in a deadly dance against the backdrop of searing scarlet. Seo realized there was no such thing as a genius or a dunce. There were only two men who had fought their entire lives against the fates imposed upon them, one now lying dead, the other standing at the brink of death. With a defiant grin, Director Kim's eyes gleamed with challenge as he asked Seo if he was going to stop there. But Seo knew this was not the end. He wasn't going to stop. He leapt high into the air, his cloak billowing as the tip of his sword gleamed under the moonlight. Channeling all his strength, he unleashed the 15th form, Layered Mountain, an overwhelming slash that descended like a tempest. The ground below erupted violently on impact, shockwaves tearing through the earth as dust and debris exploded outward in a roaring cascade. As the dust swirled violently in the aftermath, a cold voice echoed through the chaos. This is the end. The cultivator's face contorted with rage, veins bulging across his temple as he threw his head back and roared, eyes blazing with unrestrained fury. Seo's voice was cold and certain as he hurled his foe through the air. Now, even a cultivator won't be able to identify Director Kim's corpse any longer. The body tumbled weightlessly, fragments of stone falling alongside it into the dark abyss below. With his eyes gently closed and a faint, serene smile on his face, Seo spoke softly, his voice carrying both reverence and sorrow in his final prayer, that his martial arts master could rest in peace. The words lingered like a blessing, as if sending off an old friend on their last journey. And so, he finally reached the level of martial arts he had long yearned for, a peak he had chased through years of relentless effort. With that, he brought an end to a life defined by unending struggles and ceaseless battles. That marked the end of his fourth regression, a chapter closed in the long cycle of lives he had endured. Seo lay on the grass, staring at his hand in disbelief. He realized that he had regressed once more. Memories of his past life began to surface. He remembered how, in that life, he had fought relentlessly until the very end. Clenching his fist tightly, he recalled the moment with pride. He had finally achieved what he had been striving for. With overwhelming emotion, he clenched his fist and shouted to the sky. After countless struggles, he had finally done it. He had reached the peak of martial arts. At last, he had attained the strength and mastery he had longed for his entire life. Just as he was recalling the moment, John came running angrily, shouting at Seo. "What the hell are you talking about?" His face twisted with rage as he accused, "It's your fault, you crazy bastard." Meanwhile, Seo remained calm, barely reacting to the outburst. A sharp glint flashed in his eyes as a confident smile formed on his face. With certainty, he murmured to himself, "I see it." The furious Jeon swung his hand down in an attempt to strike, but Seo calmly tilted his body and dodged with ease. Shocked and angry, the man shouted, "You're dodging?" With his eyes closed and a calm expression, Seo thought to himself that he could still clearly sense everything. He knew exactly where Jeon Myung-hoon's next strike would land. Seo moved smoothly, avoiding each attack with ease. He reflected that before, he could dodge strikes even with his eyes closed, but that was only because he predicted the trajectory of his opponent's moves. That ability came from decades of martial arts experience. Seo realized that this time was different. It wasn't just prediction based on experience, it felt more like true foresight. As if he could clearly see his opponent's next move before it even happened. He realized the truth. No matter how many first-rate martial artists there were, none could ever defeat someone who had reached the peak level. Such masters could clearly see the trajectory and direction of attacks from those weaker than them. Against that kind of power, how could an ordinary martial artist ever hope to stand a chance? His eyes glowed with a sharp blue light as he focused intensely. With determination burning inside him, he thought to himself, "This time, I realize something new. I can instinctively sense it." The glowing blue lines revealed his opponent's openings and showed him the best possible trajectories to strike with. He noticed the difference in his vision. Red lines revealed the paths of his opponent's attacks, while blue lines guided him toward the most optimal counterattacks. He thought to himself that the gap between Jeon Myung-hoon and him was simply too vast. That overwhelming difference was the reason he could see so many openings in his opponent's moves. Seo's eyes widened in surprise as blood trickled from his nose. Shocked, he couldn't understand what had just happened. Clutching his head in pain, Seo gritted his teeth as blood ran down his face. Damn, it hurts. It feels like my brain is on fire. The realization struck him. Could this vision be overloading his brain? Breathing heavily with rage, John Myung-hoon swung his fist at Seo while shouting, "You bastard! You nearly got us all killed and now you dare to dodge my attacks?" In an instant, Seo struck back with precision. John's eyes rolled back as his head snapped to the side, sweat flying off his face from the sharp impact. He collapsed to the ground, knocked out cold. Seo stood over him calmly, while a group of colleagues rushed over in shock, shouting, "Section Chief John!" Seo clutched his head, still feeling the strain from the overwhelming vision. One of his colleagues approached with concern and asked, "Deputy Manager Seo, is he alright?" Seo wiped the blood from his nose and let out a deep breath. To think it had hurt this much after using it for such a short time. He thought, what could be the problem? After the fight, Seo took a moment to steady himself and then reassured his co-workers. Once he had calmed them down, the tense atmosphere began to ease. He led them to a cave and started a fire to keep them safe. After cooking some fruits for them to eat, he watched as they slowly drifted off to sleep, finally able to rest. Inside the cave, his co-workers lay scattered around the warm fire, fast asleep. The crackling flames filled the silence as they found a moment of peace after the chaos. While they slept, Seo stood outside under the night sky, practicing with a wooden stick. His movements were sharp and precise, slicing through the air as leaves fluttered around him. With a swift strike of his stick, Seo cleanly split a falling leaf in two, showcasing the sharp precision of his movements. He looked at the branch in his hand with a faint smile. Without using a single bit of ki, I managed to slice a leaf clean in half. With just this dull branch, he thought, realizing the precision of his control. Seo reflected on his ability. The vision of Martial Peak seemed to predict his opponent's moves, and his brain interpreted them, displaying red and blue lines before his eyes. Seo analyzed calmly. If he used this vision, he could read all of his opponent's movements and strike at their weaknesses with the most optimal counter. At last, Seo understood. So this is why Director Kim called it the memory of all five senses. It's actually a replication of a peak martial artist's vision. His eyes glowed with sharp blue light as he realized the truth. Director Kim had been forcing him to enhance all five senses and manually calculate his opponent's trajectories. As Seo held the branch, countless blue lines spread out before his eyes, mapping every possible path. The vision of Martial Peak is truly incredible, he thought in awe. Seo stood firm in the forest clearing, leaves swirling wildly around him. With the branch in his hand and a calm yet sharp gaze, he radiated quiet confidence, fully immersed in the power of his newly realized vision. Slowly, he closed his eyes, shutting out the world around him. In the darkness behind his eyelids, memories of battles and warriors resurfaced vividly, as if guiding him toward deeper understanding. In his mind's eye, Seo saw countless warriors in green robes charging forward with swords, axes, and spears, each strike fierce and deadly. Their movements overlapped like echoes of battle, as though he were reliving the experiences of countless martial artists at once. Seo moved with fluid precision, weaving through the storm of phantom warriors. Each swing of his branch struck perfectly, guided by visions of countless martial techniques, as if he were fighting alongside generations of masters within a single moment. In his vision, the warriors shouted fiercely, their blades flashing as they attacked from every direction. The scene was chaotic and relentless, a storm of martial fury pressing down on him all at once. As dawn broke, the forest bathed in the warm glow of sunrise. Amid the quiet rustle of leaves, Seo exhaled heavily, his breath ragged from the intense training and visions he had endured throughout the night. Drenched in sweat, he let out a relieved smile. "Now," he muttered, exhaustion mixing with determination after a night of relentless training. Standing tall with the branch still in hand, Seo looked out at the morning light with unwavering confidence. "I've finally reached the proper martial peak," he declared to himself, his heart pounding with triumph. Suddenly, Seo clutched his head in agony, gritting his teeth. His brain felt like it was about to fry to a crisp, the strain of his newfound power overwhelming him. But after he found 8 yellow bamboo roots nearby and performed the dragon vein chi method, he managed to stabilize himself. Now, he could maintain the vision for 3 whole hours. Seo looked down at the bamboo roots and thought to himself, now that I've reached this level of prowess, I no longer need to sell these yellow bamboo roots. I can resolve financial issues with my own abilities. As for the leftovers, carrying the remaining roots back to the cave, he glanced at Director Kim, who was snoring loudly in his orange jacket. Seo set the roots beside him. Director Kim slept soundly, unaware of the intense training Seo had just undergone outside. Seo sat quietly in the cave, deep in thought. In my memory are 6 volumes of Director Kim's research, as well as his final teachings before he died, he reflected, feeling the weight of the knowledge entrusted to him. Looking at the man sleeping peacefully, Seo thought, if I pass this knowledge to him, this life's Director Kim will surely surpass the previous one. Now that I've reached the martial peak, the teachings I can receive from him will far exceed what I gained in my past life. Leaving the leftover roots beside Director Kim, Seo stepped out of the cave once more. He still had no clue how to reach the next stage, but unlike his co-workers, he knew there was only one option for an idiot like him: train endlessly. To continuously maintain a peak master's vision and allow his brain to adapt to it, that was his path. Seo's eyes narrowed with determination. My first goal in this life is to resolve the burning pain I suffer when using this vision. Seo envisioned his ultimate goal, to finally attain the level of the 3 flowers gathering at the summit. Glowing blue lotuses shimmered in his mind's eye, symbolizing the pinnacle of mastery he longed to reach. Seo walked out of the cave with firm steps, his fists clenched in resolve. I will reach what is known as the pinnacle of Marshall Peak, the 3 flowers gathering at the summit. Morning arrived, sunlight spilling over the mountains and forest, marking the beginning of a new day filled with determination and resolve. The enormous fox, known as the master of the forest, appeared once more in this life. As Seo knelt and stretched out his arm toward the beast, curiosity filled his heart. His sharp blue eyes gleamed with anticipation as he wondered, will I see red lines with this fox as well? However, to his surprise, the fox's body glowed with a fierce red aura as waves of pressure rippled through the air. There was no blue. Seo's eyes widened in shock as his vision was overwhelmed. It's red everywhere. The fox's bloody jaws snapped open, its fangs dripping with menace. Seo froze in terror, his thoughts trembling. He realized he couldn't win. Staggering back, blood splattering around him, he clenched his teeth in confusion. Just what is this? He thought desperately. How could the entire area in my vision be filled with red? A few days later, under the night sky, cultivators descended from the heavens. When they arrived, Seo was once again left in shock. The cultivators floated high above, their overwhelming presence distorting everything around them. Seo's vision flared, his heart racing in disbelief. Again, it was all red. Sweat dripped down his face as he stared in horror. He realized the difference between a martial artist and a cultivator. There was no opening, no chance of victory. Even a Marshall Peak master would struggle against the weakest of cultivators, those only at the first star of the chi refining stage. The day after the cultivators took his co-workers, Seo turned to Seo Huiol, the Sea Dragon King, and asked a question. With a respectful gesture, Seo bowed slightly and said, "A humble mortal asks the great Sea Dragon King a question." The Sea Dragon King tilted his head with a faint smile and replied, "What is it?" Seo explained everything he had witnessed and then asked about the mysterious red sphere the cultivators carried. The Sea Dragon King chuckled softly. "Cultivators possess a special kind of consciousness," he said. "It is sometimes called divine consciousness. While a mortal's consciousness does not extend past the brain, a cultivator's consciousness spreads outward, engulfing the surrounding area. I too, as a spiritual creature, possess this ability." After explaining, the Sea Dragon King turned to leave. Seo bowed respectfully and thanked him. Meanwhile, Director Kim watched in confusion. Since the conversation was spoken in the language of Yangguo, Director Kim couldn't understand a single word. Shortly after Seo Huiol departed, the hunchbacked old man appeared once more, controlling a puppet at his side. This time he came to take Manager Kim away. Without warning, the old man hurled Seo and Director Kim into a swirling spatial rift, dragging them into the unknown. The two were suddenly plunged into deep waters, their bodies sinking helplessly after being cast through the rift. Seo struggled underwater, bubbles escaping his mouth as his eyes widened in shock. Panic surged through him. He pulled himself toward the surface, his hand gripping wet sand as he dragged himself ashore, frustration clear in his voice. It was on top of the trees last time. Now it's in water. Seo stood on the shore, wringing the water from his clothes, while Director Kim lay exhausted on the sand. Gasping for breath, Director Kim finally woke, panic in his eyes, and asked Seo where they were. Seo, still calm despite the situation, answered firmly, "Somewhere completely different." He buttoned up his damp shirt while scanning the surroundings. Judging by the landscape, this is the Chicken Head Lake of Yangguo. Changho City should be nearby, he thought. Director Kim let out a frustrated sigh and asked, "Seo, what should we do now?" Seo glanced around the empty shore and replied, "If there were people nearby, we could ask for directions." He pointed across the shimmering water. There appeared to be some buildings across the lake. Director Kim squinted, then nodded quickly. Seo dove into the lake without hesitation, telling him, "I know how to swim. I'll go there and get us some clothes and food." Kim Young-hoon panicked, calling out, "Seo, be careful!" As Seo swam across the lake, he muttered in frustration, "For fuck's sake, what did we squeeze the water out of our clothes for then?" Still, his thoughts sharpened. If my memories serve me correctly, that building is a bandit's den. I wiped them out in my previous life. He recalled his past encounter. Their leader had been in the late stages of first rate, the vice leader in the middle stage of first rate, and the rest were just second and third rate small fry. Of course they had numbers, so he had used poison on his blade to take them out. Suddenly, one of the bandits turned his head, narrowing his eyes. A moment later, his expression shifted to shock as he noticed someone approaching. Seo emerged from the water, droplets streaming down his clothes as he walked toward the shore. The bandits burst into laughter. "Who's this fool? Doesn't even know where he just swam to?" One sneered. "Get lost if you don't want to die!" Another spat. Seo ignored their jeers, fists clenched tightly, his steps steady and determined. One of the bandits charged, raising his club with a furious roar. "Didn't you hear me? Get lost!" But Seo stood firm, unfazed. In a flash he struck with overwhelming force, sending the bandit crashing to the ground with a thunderous impact. The man's weapon flew from his hands as he was slammed down, defeated in an instant. The other bandits froze in shock, their eyes wide. "He took him down with one hit!" Seo casually picked up the fallen bandit's weapon, giving it a quick test in his grip. With a faint smirk, he muttered, "Not bad." As Seo walked calmly onto the shore with the fallen bandit at his back, he asked the bandits, "How many people have they killed?" The muscular bandit raised his massive spiked mace, veins bulging with rage, ready to attack Seo. He told him that he's killed 50, and that he will be happy to send him to them. But before the bandit could even finish his retort, Seo's strike ripped through him in a blur. Blood sprayed into the air as the giant stumbled, his mace slipping from his grip. Seo stood calm and unshaken. The surrounding bandits gasped in horror, fear flickering across their faces. Seo's cold voice cut through the silence. "From here on out, anyone who's killed before can come at me." From the tall wooden building overlooking the camp, watchful eyes peered down. The leaders had heard the commotion. Inside, they lounged around drinking and laughing. Women pouring wine as they reveled without care. One of them roared in amusement, while another yanked harshly at a bound woman. "Come here, bitch," he barked cruelly, making her cry out in fear. Just then, a bandit holding a cup of wine paused mid-pour, eyes narrowing toward the noise outside. "Who the hell is that?" he muttered. The doors burst open, flooding the room with blinding light. Seo stood at the entrance, his silhouette dark and menacing. In one hand, he gripped a bloodied club. In the other, he held the severed head of a bandit, letting it dangle for all to see. The room fell silent. Terror crept into every corner. Seated on a grand chair draped in tiger skin, the bandit leader glared with a cold sneer, his hand resting on the head of a growling tiger at his side. "You son of a bitch," he muttered darkly. Then, raising his voice, he roared, "Kill that rat!" Chaos erupted. Armed men drew their swords, surrounding Seo. The women were shoved aside, cowering in fear, while the leader sat back on his throne, confident. Seo tightened his grip on the club, his eyes burning with cold resolve. "No need to ask. You're all going to die." The aftermath was painted in blood. Bodies of bandits lay scattered across the ground, lifeless and broken. The once noisy stronghold stood silent, looming wooden buildings now drenched in crimson. The bandit leader, who had once sat proudly on his throne, now trembled on the floor, his face pale with terror. "You're a peak master," he stammered, pleading desperately. "Please, spare me." Seo stepped forward, his shoe pressing into a pool of blood. He asked coldly, "How long did this take?" The terrified leader, surrounded by corpses, stammered, About 15 minutes." Blood streaked across Seo's face as he compared the moment to his past. "Last time, it took me a whole day to wipe them out. I had to set this place on fire, retreat, and take them one by one with poison. But this time, in just 15 minutes, I killed them all with a stick." The weight of his growth compared to his past life was undeniable. Seo loomed over the trembling bandit leader, his club dripping blood. "All right, now die. I'll tell you where I hid the money. Just spare me." Seo didn't care. With a brutal swing, his club silenced the plea. Blood splattered across the floor. "As for the money, I already know where it is, from the last time I was here." After wiping out the bandits, Seo calmly unlocked the heavy brass padlock, freeing dozens of captives. As he stepped outside, the freed people dropped to their knees, voices trembling with gratitude. "Thank you, brave one. You've taken revenge on these damned bandits." Seo's expression remained calm and unreadable. He only let out a quiet pause, their gratitude weighing little compared to his own thoughts. One of the captives looked up, his voice shaking. "Please, at least tell us your title, so we can repay our debt." Seo scratched the back of his head, glancing at the kneeling crowd. "A title." The crowd bowed even lower, voices rising with respect. "Do inform us." A confident smile curved Seo's lips as sunlight glinted across his face. "My title is Infinite Fighting Spirit."